Don't let fear, anxiety, or the desire to just get it right prevent you from taking advantage of projects that are right in front of you, projects that can transform your learner's world. Welcome to another session of Learner's Mindset Discussion. I'm Dr. Dwayne Hrapnick, and my esteemed colleague is
Dr. Talissa Thibodeau.
Today we're going to be talking about an interesting subject that is maybe going to be a bit of a shift away from some of the more theoretical or abstract discussions that we've often had, and focusing a little bit more on the pragmatic. And if I can just give you a little bit of a backstory, very recently I was doing a workshop where one of the most important issues the teachers in attendance were addressing was the fact that, how do we motivate our students? How do we engage our students? That's one of the biggest challenges that they are facing. And you and I know through the Digital Learning and Leading program, one of the challenges that a lot of the educators face and trainers face is getting that level of engagement to the point where it can make a significant difference. And so today, I want to talk about how you can create that significant learning environment where you use choice, ownership, and voice to provide that authentic learning opportunity, which actually helps to create that context for authentic and engaging learning. So we might summarize this as our COVA PL. You know, we've been talking about a workshop series that we're doing, an online course, the COVA PL series, which is just about to launch. And I see this as a way that we can actually help educators address that issue of getting that intrinsic motivation going, creating that context for learning, helping to have engaged learners, all those wonderful things. So this is where I think we need to go and talk about the opportunity that is right there, right in front of us. What are your thoughts on this as we get started?
I think talking about the pragmatic, practical side of things is going to be helpful for teachers to sort of see or visualize what we're describing when we discuss the COVA PL and the workshops and some of the things we're looking to do. Reflecting back on my experience as a teacher, sometimes time is really an issue, and I wanted to be able to do something fast and create and do something very fast and just apply it immediately. But what I've learned through some of the work in our program and working with our teachers specifically is that we need time, to really reflect, change, and go through some of the things we need to do very carefully, and not always want and wish for that. I mean, hurry up and get it. But sometimes it takes building up to that and really just spending some time thinking, reflecting, learning, and then take that and pull that together into something practical we can use. So kind of stepping away from that bolt-on or quick fix that we all want so fast, but just allowing ourselves some deep reflection time so that we can then go forward in what we're looking to do with that thinking, having explored our thinking and what we believe about things.
Yeah, the challenge I think that you're addressing is that we have to find that balance between the issue of creating a significant learning environment and what's involved in that, and then how do we actually give our learners choice, ownership, and voice through those authentic learning opportunities. So a balance between that bigger, broader perspective at looking at that whole learning environment and actually doing something right away in your classroom, in your learning environment immediately that can have an immediate impact. And I think quite often educators get caught thinking that, wow, I've got to create this whole significant learning environment. I've got to give students choice. And I need to really think about this and think it through. When you take a look at some of our other videos and our book, we talk about all the steps and everything that's involved. And I think it can almost be overwhelming. And there's nothing wrong with an educator wanting to apply something right away to have that immediate impact. So I think with our COVA PL or our COVA PD, I think we're going to be able to bridge that gap. We're going to help educators recognize some of those fundamental ideas of creating that significant learning environment, but it's not that onerous. It's not that big. Sometimes it's just a matter of changing the focus, right? Just looking to that authentic context or looking at the notion of a transcendent purpose that a learner can engage themselves in and then take ownership. Sometimes it's one or two little subtle shifts within a slightly different framework of thinking that can make all the difference in the world. So I think what we want to talk about and where we're going in this discussion today is, as my wife would point out, Dwayne, they don't want everything. They don't want your past 25 years or 30 years of reading and research. They just want a simple solution. And so maybe we need to talk about that simple solution of doing that real project that can be engaging. Sometimes it's just that shift of giving that learner something to work on that is bigger than themselves. And yes, that's part of creating a significant learning environment. Yes, that's part of giving them choice, ownership, and voice. But maybe if we simplify that discussion and focus on, yeah, listen, what about a real project? And a real project that the learner chooses that can make a difference in their lives. And that still is going to satisfy all our theoretical constructs. So this is where I think we need to go today. Any more thoughts before we really dive into this?
I am ready to talk about this because I think this is a question that's come up in a lot of our classes, a lot of our discussion posts on Facebook, even in just speaking one-on-one with our students. They want to do big things. They want to change the world one learner at a time. But sometimes, they don't always know how. And I think going down this pathway of discussing this and talking a bit maybe more about what motivates us to do these things would be a great conversation to have today, for sure.
Well, I think the important thing that you and I are learning when we start working with our learners, especially in our course on the innovation plan, that term innovation plan, oh wow, that's big. That's a big audacious goal. That's too big to really implement quickly. Well, sometimes when we talk to our learners and we have that opportunity to have that one-on-one dialogue through Zoom or Skype or on the phone, we quickly realize that they have an idea for implementing a cooking challenge within their school that will bring together the carpenters, the culinary arts students, the designing students. And if they put together a bit of a cooking contest, a cooking show, they can actually engage all their students in a variety of different programs in creating something that is going to have a significant difference in all these students' lives. Well, it's a cooking show. It's a cooking contest. So all the different students in the different programs get to participate in that. Well, that's just a project. Well, we call it an authentic learning opportunity, and we package it within the context of this innovation plan, when it really is, hey, let's put on a cooking show. Let's put on a cooking contest. Sometimes it's really just a matter of taking what's available, what is right in front of the learner, and quite often the learners have these ideas themselves, and helping them to, go down that path. Here is how you might want to look at doing that. Here's some things that are going to be important. Getting the students involved, getting them involved in the planning, getting them involved in doing the creation, the promotion, all those different things. And if you can engage a variety of students from a variety of different disciplines, you've got a departmental collaboration going on as well, which checks off all kinds of wonderful boxes when it comes to constructivist-based learning. Sometimes it's just a matter of shifting that focus from our theoretical constructs of CSLE plus COVA to, hey, a real project.
Yeah. I love the idea of, sometimes when teachers are in the midst of some of the things that they're teaching, they get this seed idea. And that's what I like to help them build out and think about whenever they're doing an innovation plan. It could be something like one of our former students said, I teach high school, I have access to a 3D printer. My students, they need to know more about consumer economics. I'm going to build an entrepreneurial cafe. This is something that is like a seed idea that's somewhere, and teacher, we all experience it. I say that because there were so many seed ideas that I had when I was in the classroom and thought, which one's going to be worth it? Which one do I have resources for? Which one is going to make the biggest impact? You can get the teachers, more than one teacher involved and more than one class involved. You talk about a cooking idea. I was thinking math. You're going to need math people. You're going to need people from, home economics. You'll need people who are just great planners. So what's really exciting is taking those seed ideas or something innovative that you've thought of. Let me just go down that path. See where this takes me. I don't have to have everything planned out perfectly. That's part of an innovation plan, is really making adjustments and iterations as you go, finding what works and what doesn't. how to work with other people. But just taking, and a seed idea doesn't have to be something that is all done it within a month. It may take several months to take it from one idea to a much larger idea and include other people. So we're not talking about something that's brand new or something way up here unachievable or calling you an inventor. It's just a matter of getting passionate, getting excited about what you're doing, getting your students involved, and taking the steps to get there to actually meet some of the learning outcomes you're looking to meet, and kind of meeting those standards, competencies, skills along the way, right? That shift in focus that you were talking about. We find ourselves going back to that every time we talk because that's really where it's at. And that lends itself to an authentic learning experience. That's something the kids could dream up and do within a blended learning environment or even within their own science classes, math classes. So the opportunities are open and endless here. We're not talking about one very specific, narrow, got to be an inventor to come up with this idea. Just the seed idea that you grow. Does that make sense?
Oh, I think you've really hit on something important. You'd mentioned the idea of connecting these ideas together, and I think of our video about connecting the dots versus collecting the dots, which is important. But I also think of Stephen Johnson's video about chance favoring the connected mind. And in that YouTube video and then in that talk where he talks about the fact that, the Parisian cafes back in the 18th, at the end of the 18th and the turn of the 19th century, were places where people came together and they shared ideas in those coffee shops. And it was out of those coffee shops that amazing changes happened in Europe. And they're bringing together ideas and people. Well, we live in the most amazing time to be a learner. We live in a connected world, and it's so easy to connect people through technology, through the internet, through a variety of tools that we use, and schools really are hotbeds of opportunity because of what's happening. You were talking about this cooking show. Well, yeah, you've got the film studies people, the videography people, you've got the graphic arts people for creating menus, you've got the carpenters who can build a set. If you start to go down that path and explore just what's in front of you, what's available to you, we live in a world of abundance. When I was working with this one particular student who's this is her idea. The exciting part was I was able to come alongside and throw out ideas through questions. What about this? What about this? And through our conversation, what I found myself doing was that I helped her to expand her thinking to incorporate much more. I think there's often a tendency for us to think about what happens in our classroom. Right? When we get in there, we close the door. This is what we have control over, and we can manage that. I can manage what's happening, okay? But as soon as we start thinking about the other people, oh, I'm going to lose control. Well, but that's learning. Sometimes losing a little bit of control is important because you have to see where the opportunity takes you. Now, you still have control within the context. A group of teachers are going to come together, a variety of different teachers. It isn't just allowing these kids to come together willy-nilly and to just make it up on their own. No, nobody's talking about that. There's always a tendency for people to go, well, you're just talking about total chaos there. No, I'm not. I'm talking about guided discovery, right? And I think back to, Bruner's work and having to spend a couple of years, walking people off the ledge about, his discussion about discovery-based learning, right? He was referring to discovery that was within the context of a guided environment. It's a teacher's role to coach and guide and mentor, right? And so when you can help an educator to think about the fact that they shift their role from content delivery to being in charge to doing the testing to make sure that the student regurgitates information to coaching, guiding, mentoring, facilitating, they start to take on a different perspective, and they step back a little bit and realize that if we just sort of lighten up a little bit and let the kids get involved, get the learner involved a bit, when they start to take ownership, so many things can happen. And I think one of the things that I had in this conversation with this one particular student is that she started to realize that, wow, you know what, I've got a bigger, broader construct that I'm looking at. I've got an idea of where we're going, but you know what, if I truly collaborate with people, it's going to grow naturally. It's going to grow organically. And it could grow into something that is going to be even bigger and broader and grander. And you can still satisfy the business course requirements. You can still satisfy the carpentry requirements. You can still satisfy the film studies requirements within the context of this bigger, broader perspective. Now, we're talking about a big project that can be massive, but it doesn't have to be that way. It can be a smaller project like an e-portfolio or doing blended learning with a smaller group of students. And one of the things that I think that is really important that we can bring to the table is that you and I live in this environment of abundance and exploration and scheming and dreaming. And one of the things that we can actually do with our learners is we can ask those questions. You know, as a coach from the sidelines, we're seeing what's happening. You know, I think of an example of coaching my boys when they're riding. You know, when Levi's coming into a corner on his bike, I can see whether or not he's got his butt out and his elbows out, right? And sometimes it's just making that little adjustment that's going to give him more snap, and he'll be able to pull more G's out of the corner. Well, you know what? With what we can offer with our COVA PL and the professional learning and the professional development that we can guide people on, is that through our conversations, through our interactions, through that dialogue, you know, we can say, yeah, your butt's up a little bit. You want to tuck that in a little bit, get your elbows out, and then that'll make a bit of a change. I know it's a goofy analogy, but it's
Right.
really sometimes a matter of just sort of tweaking some of the ideas that are already there and helping the learner to recognize the amazing potential that's just slightly beyond where they're looking. So I think that's one of the things that we can offer through our COVA PL. And I'm excited about that because it can really make a difference. What are your thoughts?
I was thinking two words while you were talking. The first one was autonomy. You know, the more control that we have, the less autonomy our students have. But don't we want to shift that to give them a little bit of autonomy and give them a little bit of control over the task and the time and the technique and the team that they build to solve the problems that they're looking to solve, or the authentic learning opportunities? So I'm thinking back to Pink's work and how to get our students in a state of flow, right? A state of flow really is where, you know, the difficulty of what they're trying to do and their skill level, they're trying to solve problems and go down that pathway of authentic learning experience. And that might sound theoretical or difficult, but if I take it down to a practical level, this is not something that has to be all done in one day. When I was learning how to use augmented reality, I had this seed idea. So I'm taking it down to the classroom level. Seed idea. And I would think, okay, how can I actually do this with my kids where they can have some control over the mobile devices, what we're learning, and how we set this up? Because ultimately, they're going to learn things out of that experience that I never expected them to learn. How can I get them to a state of flow? Of course, I didn't know that, you know, focusing and concentrating and really being excited and passionate about a project meant flow. But doing some research, that's what that was. So each week I would, and sometimes each day, just a little bit of that seed idea would come alive. So maybe today we're going to work on our images, and maybe next Wednesday when I have a 45-minute break, I'm going to work on the next part of that. Maybe I'm going to teach my students one time how to overlay images and videos. I do that, and then I'll have them do it, you know, and work. So it can be broke. Your innovative ideas, your authentic learning experiences don't have to be all in one day. Don't have to be brand new. This can be something that you work on and work towards over a period of time. And if you let the kids help you navigate that pathway, you might actually learn things that you didn't expect to learn as a teacher, and then you can bump this up and take it to the next level next year. Right? So it can be something that builds upon itself. So, you know, I think I referred to this before when we were in a high school classroom. You know, we didn't have to do a lot of teaching to the students. Whenever they picked up their devices to record videos, and they did their image overlays in a project they did in a local school district, one time I showed them kind of what to do and how to do it. I didn't have to show them after that. They did it. And they actually built teacher notebooks in a Spanish class that the students could then use year after year after year. And now it's like, okay, what's next? We've learned how to do this. What's next? So excited, so passionate. Those kids were in a state of flow. That is where I think learning occurs naturally, and it follows the guided discovery. I I was excited as a teacher when I saw my kids doing those things, whether it was elementary or high school. I've done it with both. And then from there, I thought, why not share this with the world? So my next step was, let me take this to a conference. And I let all the teachers learn how to do it. And they were scanning things around the room and learning how to use augmented reality. Fun stuff. But it started with a seed idea. And it wasn't brand new. It was brand new to me and my kids, but it was something I built on over time and made it what the kids really enjoyed. I didn't know what the end product was, or I didn't see the finish line very clearly at the time. I just navigated my way and the students helped me do that, right? So I had to let go of some of that control and give them some autonomy over this in order for this to be real for them, authentic to them. Make sense?
Oh, definitely. You mentioned the term autonomy, and we know from Daniel Pink's work, Drive, he emphasizes autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Well, right within the context of what you're talking about, by giving the students control, you're giving them the autonomy. By allowing them to experiment, to do those things, they're able to develop mastery over their perspective. And you talked about connecting it to the real world. Well, there's purpose there. And so I think getting into that flow that Pink talks about, I think is important, and we want to do that. You also mentioned something I think that is really crucial for us to remember, and we often forget about this because we slip into bad habits when it comes to professional development, professional learning. We all know that it happens, for those 2 or 3 days at the beginning of the year in September or August, right? That's when you do your professional learning, or you've got a break over Christmas, or right now I've been watching emails, summer's coming, and so we do all our PD at the end of spring or beginning of summer, right? You pack in the PD over this, 1 or 2 week period and it's all taken care of. But the research is clear. That doesn't work. We know from decades of research that effective PD has to happen over weeks, if not months, an extended period of time. So the number one principle of effective PD, extended duration. Number two principle, you have to have ongoing support during that duration. That ongoing support has to come from a coach or a mentor who's modeling the type of PD that you should be implementing. So people like ourselves, what you and I do, we come alongside people, guide and coach through Zoom sessions like this or Skype or whatever, or phone calls. That guidance, that direction, that encouragement as a person is doing that PD as they're going along makes all the difference of the world, right? We're modeling what we do by what we do, right? The other thing that's going to be extremely important is that they're working on something real. That's a fourth principle, right? An active learning environment, real context. Now, the context, they're doing something that's happening in the classroom. The reason I'm hesitant to promote PD in the summer, although that's a time when teachers have off or other educators have off, is that quite often you're building something that you're not actually going to use until later on. And it's that building something as you're using it that can make all the difference in the world. You don't know how a project's going to work until you start to implement it and you start to experiment with it, right? If you plan it all out over the summer and you've got it just nailed down, well, guess who's got the autonomy? Guess who's got the mastery? Guess who's got the purpose? You do. But if you want to give that autonomy and mastery and purpose to the learner, well, guess what? You have to take those things and you have to invite the learner into the learning process. You have to give them choice. You have to give them ownership. They will develop a voice through that authentic project. So if you try to control everything, well, you are shortchanging the learner of the experience that you just had when you did all this planning ahead of time. So yes, it's important to plan. I'm not saying you don't plan. You plan, you prepare, you scheme and dream, but you do so in a way that when you start to actually implement the project and you get the learners involved, guess what? The better prepared you are, the better planning you have, the easier it is for you to pivot and shift. And as the project goes in this direction, well, that's great. That's wonderful. That's the direction it needs to go. Sometimes it's those pivots that I think can make the biggest difference. And we've seen this with our DLL graduates and our DLL students. I would argue, we have to do a research article on this. We should actually take a look at how many students have had to pivot on their innovation plans. More than half have had to actually do something radically different. And it's when they did that pivot and when they realized, my original plan, that wasn't going to work because it was all about me. Once they realized, well, the learners really needed to do this. Okay, then I need to shift in that direction. it makes all the difference in the world, you know, because there's nothing like a little bit of reality to force your plans to be a little bit more realistic. And I think that's important. So that ongoing professional learning, the professional development, I'm exchanging those two terms because here in the US, we're shifting towards professional learning, but, you know, in Canada and the UK, we're still talking about PD, right? So those are the same term. But the important thing is that that context of the learning has to be that learning environment, and it has to be real, it has to be dynamic. So what we're talking about is coming alongside educators, using our years of experience and knowledge to help them see those bundles of gold that are just sitting in front of them, right in front of them, because there are opportunities throughout every single learning environment, every single school, every single business environment, every single environment of learning. There's opportunities to engage the learner in doing something real. And if we just allow the learner to get involved and take some of that ownership, and once they take some of that ownership, autonomy kicks in. Once that ownership kicks in, right, the choices that they've made, it's just amazing. If it's real, it's wonderful. And then they start to express themselves, their voice starts to develop, it changes everything. And before you know it, you aren't dealing with, well, they're not really motivated. How do I actually increase engagement? But your challenge is you're running after them. You're just hanging on to point them in the right direction as learners go off in different tangents. And sometimes the project can get massive and change not just the classroom, but change the community. That's the exciting thing. And I think we've seen examples of that. I know with our DLL graduates, we've seen examples where it isn't just the classroom, it's the school, and then it's the district, then it's the community that is impacted by some of these ideas, where the educator listens to somebody like yourself and myself who coaches and guides them to sort of, you know, allow the learner to take that ownership, give them that choice where they can take that ownership, help them to see that they can change the world through something that's real, through authentic learning opportunity. And then once they start going down that path, you can help them to develop their voice as they share those amazing things with the world. Yeah, it can be exciting. So this is our COVA PL. This is what we're doing. This is a little bit more than a quick fix, but at the same time, it really is doing projects effective. It really is project-based learning, but I think it's project-based learning in the right way. What do you think?
I love that you acknowledge that PL or PD is bunched into the beginning of the school year, end of the school year, because the common lament I've heard over my 11 years in public ed is they share all these great things, but we don't have time to even think about that or implement these things. And so what I see as the difference with our PL is that we will help people with some of their seed ideas, some of these great things they're being talked about, and we might be able to, you know, over the course of the year, help them develop into the educator that they really want to be in terms of experimenting and having fun. And, you know, the last thing we want is to keep, and I've seen this over and over in my years in elementary, assigning an extrinsic reward to everything the kids do, so much so that it becomes a task on top of the teachers. I think if the teachers set up authentic learning experiences for themselves and the students alike, and the students get to navigate that pathway, there will be no need for all of these extrinsic rewards that are assigned to all these things to do, because these kids are going to end up in a state of flow. Isn't that where we want our kids to be? Don't we want them to go out and do great things in the world? Don't we want to get them thirsty for that now while they're in school? You know, and I just see the potential here that our COVA PL is going to offer, where we can step alongside some of these teachers who are hungry themselves and work with them and coach them all the way through. Not to mention where we have communities of practice that are, you know, currently setting themselves up right now. We can connect the educators to, that they can then reach out to people who are like-minded like themselves and who have built out innovation plans as well, and can also help give feedback and advice. But the feedback and advice that we'll share and give with them is to help, like you said, coach, facilitate, mentor, that kind of thing. Not tell you what you need to do or teach you how to best run your innovation plan or your seed idea. We're here to help you through that. And most educators will say, I don't really know who to talk to. I don't really have anyone to connect with when it comes to this idea that I have. We are going to be there to do that.
Not only are we going to be there for them through this on these online courses and this professional development that we are about to release. I think we can address something that you had mentioned that is a challenge. You know, I've been working as an innovator for a long time, and even though I'm on the bleeding edge of a lot of things, I often find myself being stymied or hindered by my assumption that something is going to be bigger or take more time than it really is. And let me give you an example of something. So what quite often when we're looking at something that is bigger and we're not really sure about what's going to go on, we think, oh, I'm going to need a lot of time to really do this. And, you know, I'm going to use an example of, you know, this cup. So instead of really taking advantage of the fact that, you know, I might need to actually look at this cup from a different perspective, we start to think, I need to build a new cup. I have to build a new cup. I think we can come along with these educators and say, no, you don't have to build a new cup. It isn't going to take that much time. Maybe you just need to turn the cup this way to see the different perspective. That doesn't take that much time. It's a little bit less time. You know, if you're thinking I got to build a brand new cup, well, yeah, it's going to take a lot of time to design and build a cup, but maybe you don't need to. Maybe you just need to look at the project just a little bit differently. And so what I found is that what holds me back is that I'm thinking, oh, it's the whole elephant. No, it's not. No, just here's a few bites here and there. This is where you start. Yeah, it could grow into a bigger project, but this is where you start. And sometimes I think we are also responsible for that as educators, right? You know, because we provide all the theory. So you've got to create that significant learning environment where you give choice, ownership, and voice. And so a person's going, oh man, there's 8 components. I've got to check off all 8 boxes. Whoops, sorry, no. Focus on the real project and we'll help you get clarity on what you can do with it, right? So you're looking at all those letters. No, just step back a little bit. Oh, do you see it now? Right. So that is what I think we can do. We can help a learner quite often just change their focus just enough to see what's right there. And that often is what a coach and mentor needs to do. You know, I could take my years of experience and beating my head against the wall. You know, you remember my printing scenario problem from a few years ago where I was saving the institution hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on printing, and that blew up in my face. Well, I can save a lot of educators frustration, hassles, because man, I've made a lot of mistakes. And I can actually help speed up that process by going, careful, that could you could bump into a problem there. And so that's what we can do. And I think that's what we can provide ourselves, but also guess what? Like you had mentioned, our communities of practice, right? You're not alone. There's other people who are building maker spaces. There are other people who are implementing authentic learning within that science curriculum. There's other people who are using e-portfolios to engage learners and make a difference, right? They're getting rid of the essay box, or they're getting rid of that basement box, or whatever you want to call it. I think there's a guy who's got a book about that, or actually one of our students talked about this basement box where all the students' assignments end up in this box in the basement that they never take a look at, right? So, you can put them into a digital e-portfolio. So sometimes it's just shifting, thinking just enough to recognize, wow, you got a box of documents here. Well, you could actually, instead of looking at an e-portfolio as a storehouse of content, if it's a place where students can actually share their ideas and share their voice, it changes everything. Kids are Instagramming, WhatsApping. They're communicating, collaborating all the time. Well, turn that into a positive thing. Take that desire to share your ideas with the world and make it part of the learning environment. And all we're doing is just sort of taking some of those natural desires that our learners have and identifying some ideas and resources that a teacher might be thinking about and connecting them together. Right? It's making that connection, that connected mind. So chance and opportunities favor the connected mind. So I think with our COVA PL, what we're going to be able to do is help educators to see where those opportunities are and how maybe connecting just a couple of little ideas together can take an idea for a project and turn it into something that is really transformative, that has a transcendent purpose, that gives a learner autonomy and mastery and purpose, right? So our idea of giving our learners choice, ownership, and voice through those authentic learning opportunities turns it as something that is really transformative. And it's really just a matter of, wow, by doing this project, it can happen in this way. So I think we can actually help educators, wade through some of the educationese that we have delivered, and to wade through some of the theory that we have delivered, and realize, no, this is a practical way of making this happen. Yeah, I think we have a wonderful opportunity that we're presenting.
All I can think about is how excited I am. Back when I was a classroom teacher, this is exactly what I think I would have needed and wanted. Because sometimes you're intimidated by going to certain people in your school, or they're overworked, and or they're busy, and this is an opportunity for teachers to have sort of a fresh lens and a fresh perspective, and connect to the communities of practice all over the world as well. I would have loved to have this. Just, I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm excited to be able to work with different folks and see what seed ideas come out of this, and where they take it in terms of that transcendent learning.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I think we have a wonderful opportunity, and I think our only challenge is going to be getting the word out initially, to get this rolling. We have a lot of graduates in the DLL program who are looking to share these ideas with their colleagues in their learning environments, and so we've got that starting point. But I think there's a bigger, broader need, and so I think it's going to be important for us to look at ways that we can promote this. I know you've been thinking about it for a long time. I've been working at this for a lot of years, and we live in the most amazing time to be a learner. We live in a time of abundance, contrary to all the doom and gloom we hear on the news, and the world's coming apart. Well, no, it's really not that bad. It's amazing. The world's information's in the palm of our hands. The things that we can do, the ability to help learners find their voice, the ability to give people choice, the ability to connect people together, and we're social beings. If Facebook and the internet has taught us anything, we want to be connected, we want to collaborate, we want to share, we want to communicate. Wow, I think we can leverage those intrinsic desires that we have and turn them into positive ways that we can actually facilitate authentic learning. And so that's exciting. I'd love to say this is a radically new idea. No, these are just old ideas that we're sort of cobbling together in perhaps a bit of a novel way. But I'm excited. I'm excited to promote this, and I'm looking forward to releasing the PD. I know you and I have been working on our videos and our scripts and all that, and it's just about ready to go. So it's going to be exciting to see where we're able to take learning, and to see the changes that are going to happen one learner at a time. It's going to be exciting. And on that note, I think we might need to end. You have anything else we should talk about?
I'm good.
Okay, I'm good. Take care.